Okay, so our goal for today is one thing, which is to understand this pasuk that the Rambam quotes in Yeshia'hu. So we'll do the context though. Again, mutav. This is in Megilah 2:17. Mutav la'adam laharbos b'matnos of evyonim milaharbos b'udaso ubishaluach l're'av. It is better for a person to increase in his matanos l'evyonim than to increase in his seuda or in his mishalach manos. There's no greater or more glorious simcha than to bring joy to the hearts of the Aniyim and the orphans and the widows and the gerim. Because someone who brings joy to the hearts of these, I think Amalalim is like downtrodden, that's how I translated it, is compared to the shechinah, as it says, to enliven the spirit of the lowly and to give life to the heart of the crushed. Okay, then we saw the same halacha in Matnos 10:5. Shal ha'ani mimacha v'ein biadacha klum litein lo. If an ani asks you for money and you don't have anything to give him, paisehu b'dvarim, you should appease him with words. V'asur ligor b'ani o lahagbia kol alav v'zaka. It's asur to shout at an ani or to raise your voice against him in a shriek. Because his heart is broken and crushed. And it says, Lev nishbar v'nitke elkim lo sivzeh. A broken and crushed heart, God, you do not despise, which I think we said means that there's a part of you that is inclined to despise that, and you have to be emulate God by not despising that. And it also says that not only does God not despise it, but he does the opposite. He enlivens the spirit of the lowly and he gives life to the heart of the crushed. Woe to the one who shames an ani, woe to him, that he rather should be to him like an av, like a father, whether in mercy or in words. As it says, I am a father to the poor. That was a quote from Eov. Yeah. Okay. So the question is like, what's this midami b'shechina idea, right? So we look at Yeshia'hu. Okay. So the actual, I believe, tell me where the Haftarah of Yom Kippurim starts. I think it's on pasuk 14. Yep. Yeah. So this, if any of this is recognizable, it's from the Haftarah of Yom Kippurim for Shacharis. We're not going to start from the beginning of the chapter, but we'll start from the Haftarah because that's, seemingly a good place to start. So it says, he will say, pave, clear the road, remove the obstacle from my people's path. For thus, here's our pasuk, which I'm going to read in Hebrew. Let me click on this here. So the Hebrew is Kiko Amar Ram Venisa Shochin Ad V'Kadosh Shemo Marum V'Kadosh Eshkon. Sorry. I think I punctuated that wrong. Hold on. Let me actually open the Navi and zoom in. Ki ko amar ram v'nisa shochin ad v'kadosh shemo marum v'kadosh eshkon. Breathe. V'esdaka ushval ruach. V'esdaka ushval ruach lahachios ruach shval lahachios lev mitkaim. Yeah. So what does that mean? So our scroll translates it as, for thus said the exalted and uplifted one who abides forever and whose name is holy. I abide in exaltedness and holiness, but I am with the despondent and the lowly spirit. So the S here is a with. Okay. To revive the spirit of the lowly and to revive the heart of the despondent. For not forever will I contend, nor will I be eternally wrathful, when the spirit that envelops them is from me, and I made their souls. That's interesting. I became angry because of his sinful thievery. I struck him, I hid myself, and became angry because he continued waywardly in the path of his heart. But when I see his contrite ways, I will heal him. I will guide him and recompense him and his mourners with consolations. I create the speech of the lips. That's Bori Nivsavasayim, I think. Shalom l'rachok l'karov. Right, peace for the far and the near. I don't know if we quote this anymore. I feel like that's a thing. Says Hashem, and I will heal him. Urufasiv. But the wicked one shall be like the driven sea that cannot rest, and the waters, whose waters disgorge mire and mud. There is no peace, said my God, for the wicked. Yeah. No rest for the wicked. Yeah. Okay. And then he talks about Yom Kippur and how they should and shouldn't observe it. I think we can confine ourselves to this thing here. Yeah. So what's the pshat? So what's the pshat of first of all, of the Lev? Who's he talking about when he says the spirit of the lowly and the heart of the despondent? I don't know if you can get it from context. There are mafarshim who do it, but it's a little hard to spot if you don't know.
People.
Yeah, what kind of people?
I was just saying all people.
Oh, all people? Okay. Well, I don't think it can be all people, right? Because then he wouldn't have to single out the lowly and the despondent, right?
Sinners.
Okay. And so why would God help the sinners? So it's not, the hint is it's not just sinners. I mean, it's not sinners per se.
It seems like people who do sins, and that is it, because he says in 17, he says, I became angry because of his sinful thievery. I struck him, I hit myself, and became angry because he continued waywardly in the path.
Yeah, okay, good. Now one more pasuk. But when I see his contrite ways, I will heal him, I will guide him and recommend him. So plain shot is this is talking about people who were sinners and did teshuvah. Okay, and that's the lowly spirit and the heart of the despondent. And in fact, the pasuk that the Rambam quotes in the Matnos Aniyim of that should be familiar to you, or at least to you, because we did that in Tehillim 51, which is the parak about David doing teshuvah. And that whole thing is about him doing tshuva, you know. So plain shot is that this pasuk is not, when it says leiv nishbrav nidke, it's not talking about the poor in terms of like finances. It's talking about people who did tshuva. And in fact, the Mefarshim, I think the majority of the Mefarshim that I looked at this morning at least said that. Let me just give you a smattering. Let's see if Rashi said that. No, not Rashi. Yeah, so the Marikra, who was either a Rebbe or a contemporary of Rashi, I think. Marom v'kadosh, afal pi shemaroman v'kadosh eshkon, even though I dwell on high, ini es daka ushfal ruach, my eyes are with the crushed and the low-spirited. Imisha mashpil rucho lefanai v'nichna v'shav b'tshuva lahachil's ruach shvalim. Yeah, so that I think that's pshat. And if you had to guess which sinners is he talking about? Like, I mean, probably, but which
the ones that you're talking about before?
Yeah, which specific like demographic? I mean, group of people. Klal Yisrael, right? During Bayis Rishon, right? Yeah, right. Jews. Yeah. Klal Yisrael during Bayis Rishon. So that seems to create a problem because it's not how the Rambam is using the pasuk. Yeah. Does he bring down these pasukim? You mean the specific? You know what I should have done from the get-go? I should have looked at the Kafach manual. Let's see if Bing gives it to me. Hold on a second. Mikra, there we go. Mikra Baramam. Thank you to Absent Akiva, who suggested that I use Google Chrome to open the PDFs. I don't know if that's going to make things faster, but he noticed that it was opening it in a different app as opposed to doing it on Chrome, so I switched that around. Okay, let's see. Yeshayahu. If anyone wants a copy of this pamphlet, by the way, then let me know. Yeah, I feel like I've used this in Rambam Bekius before, right? Yeah, and I'm pretty sure it's out of print, which is why I don't feel like I'm, I feel like at this point sharing this. Okay, Yeshayahu 57. What is it? 57:15. Yeah. So we got Mishnah, Torah, Megilah, וחנוכה, Matanos, Aniyim, פירוש משנה, Avos, daled, more nevuchim. Oh my. Aleph. Yeah, he does. Okay, let's look at the פירוש משנה, daled. We might not look at more nevuchim, even though obviously that's like a big. Maybe we should look at more.
They said Aleph.
Let's see. Is it just Aleph or is Aleph? No. Yeah, it's just Aleph. Just Aleph. Yeah. Daled. Because it's Aleph Chaf and Aleph Lamed Daled. Yeah. I think Daled. If I'm gonna guess, no, I can't guess. Oh, I should have guessed. This is exactly what I was going to guess. It's Amar Rabbi Levitas Ish Yavne Omer Meod Meod Havishval Ruach Shetikvas Enosh Rima. Person should be very, very low spirited because the hope of man, or as our school translates Enosh, the hope of mortal man is worms. And the Rambam quotes this. I'm not going to read the entire thing. This is his long discourse on humility, and he quotes this in. I'm just going to read the local context. Oh yeah, he quotes this Gemara that a lot of Mefarshim quote on our on our pasuk, it says, hold on. V'amru davar zeh kasu b'Torah. It's talking about God's humility. Oh, it says here, b'shevach anava gnusa gaiva, ulfikach tziva zeh lehiskarv l'shiflus haruach amr mo'am ha'shval ruach choshesh she'im yishar ha'adam b'gvul ha'anava bilvad shemi yehei bo chelik min ha'gaiva v'kiven shu karav la. So we just general review, right? Rambam holds you stick to the middle path in all midos except for gaiva and kaas. So anava he holds is the middle path, and saying that because you are close to gaiva, you should go to the opposite extreme and go shval ruach. Lefisha hanava mutas kamosh b'yarnu. All right. Amru b'shavach hanava mash asasa chachma keser l'rosha asas anava ekev l'godla. We went through all this in Rambam Bekius 2 years ago. Harizo rayash yiras Hashem yoser yakar min hachma v'hi sibas mitzusa. V'amr ekev anava yiras Hashem. We did this in Mishnah a year ago. Klomar yiras Hashem nimshachas b'shulei ha'anava nimsa sha'anava yoser gedola min hachma b'harbe. Okay, here we go. V'amru davar zeh kasud b'Torah shanoi b'nevim mishulash b'ksuvim. So this idea is written in the Torah, repeated in the Nevi'im, and repeated again in the Ksuvim. Kol makom she'ata motze gvuraso shel kadosh baruch hu sham ata motze anva nasuso. Any place where you find the gvura of God, that's an interesting contrast. The gvura of God, there you find his humility. Kasud b'Torah hakel hagadol hagibor v'hanora v'achrav ose mishpat ger yasam v'almana. Right. So that's God, the great, mighty, and awesome. And then afterwards it says he does justice for the convert and the orphan and the widow. Vishanim b'Nevi'im, it's repeated in the Nevi'im. That's here. Kiko amar Ram v'Nisa shochin ad v'kadosh shemo marum v'kadosh eshkon. So that's talking about how lofty God is. V'amar b'samuch, and it says close by v'es deke ushval ruach. And then Mishulish b'Ksuvim, it's repeated another time in the Ksuvim. Solu l'roche ba'aravos b'kat shemo. So it says pave a path, I guess, for the one who rochev ba'aravos. I don't know how to translate that there, but it's talking about God, seemingly on high. Va'achrav avi yasomi v'dayan almanos, and it says, "I am the father of orphans and the judge for widows." Yeah. Okay. Do you find it?
Oh yeah. So in chapter 20, he talks about the term Ram.
Yeah.
So he brings in the pasuk.
Okay.
To explain it as an example of the second way of reading it, which is like Haramah, it's a reference to God. Okay.
Right. Does he say what it means?
Well, he says in the beginning, the significance is being elevated in space and being elevated in degree, to say exalted station, nobility, great worth. Yeah. And then he brings in like the Aron. Yeah. And then like things like that, like those are physical things, and also means with God. It just says when occurring with reference to God. Okay. Like God is wrong, and okay. Yeah. See, this is kind of why I didn't want to do the more Nebuchim, because if we're going to do it, we should do it in the responsible way, which is go through the whole thing. But then the second, and 34 is a big chapter. Okay, fine. Where he talks about metaphysics. Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay, fine. All right. So let's just take what we have here. Okay. We'll exclude ourselves from the audience of the more Nebuchim for our purposes. So so that's the question: is plain pshat, is that refers to people who did tshuva? So can we unify that? And then I want to show you just really quickly the where is my yeshi'הו here? A couple mafarshim I feel gave us clues. One is the Radak, who says shochin ad shochin le'olam. So it means he dwells forever, right? V'tam shochin ad ki k'mosh yikra shochin mi shemasmid amidasu b'makom kein yikari hakayis ala shochin ad lefi shemasmid hashgachas b'nivraim. So he's saying that the idea of eternity is not the idea of the eternity of God. It's the idea that he's masmid his hashgacha on the creations. Okay, so not what we would necessarily think. And then kadosh shemo k'moshe shamati shayu korim oso hasrahim kadosh Hashem tzvakos, just like Yeshia'hu heard in Perek Vav, kadosh kadosh kadosh, ma yomar hakel maram kadosh eshkan. So that's what he's repeating here. And then v'es deke ushval ruach, or daka ushval ruach, ve'afal pish eshkon imromim the kadoshim. Even though I dwell with those who are on high and the kadoshim, him hagalgalim hamalachim, which are the spheres and the malachim, kain eshkon im hatachtonim. So too I dwell with the lower creations. Imishu bahem daka ushval ruach lahachios rucham v'libam. Afal pishahim batzara. So he is learning it
well, that could be consistent with people who need to do tshuva. But even though they are batzara, sometimes they don't think that I am mashgiach on them. So it's talking about the Jews who have been in galus for a long time. Similarly, the Abrabnel has a nice little thing here. He says, so he's high up in comparison to the heavens, which he moves. And he is exalted vis-a-vis the skalim hanivdalim, the separate intelligences, because he's higher than they are. So how is God greater than the skalim? Because God is eternal and they are created. So even though both God and the skalim are non-physical and everlasting, God is eternal. V'hu amro shochin ad b'kadoshmo ki ad more al hahasmada hanitzchius v'hu me'omro yisparach maram kadosh eshkon tzedakah ushval ruach rotzolomar emes hu shani eshkon merom mania hagalgal ha'elyon b'kadosh sibas kol ha-schalim hanivdalim ha'kadoshim aval gamkin ani shochin tzedakah ushval ruach shehu ha'adam lo mipnei chomriuso b'gufa. I'm not mashgiach on man because of his physicality and his body. But only by virtue of his intellect. That's what it means to enliven the ruach of the shvalim, which I think he means sounds like he's saying the intellect. Him ha'anavim v'hachasidim v'lahachayos lev nitkaim him hamadukaim b'galos v'ha'inyan kulo. And the whole idea, like the Radak said, is despite God's exaltedness, he does not remove his hashgacha from the tachtonim. And then it quotes the Gemara that the Rambam quoted. And that's the rest of the thing. Yeah. So does that help us? What?
So where did the Rambam get it from?
Oh no, the Rambam got it from the Gemara. I'm saying he's quoting the Rambam. The same Gemara that the Rambam quotes about how it's said in the Torah and it's repeated in the that thing. Yeah.
I was saying this.
Sorry, no, not that. Yeah. I meant the same thing that the Rambam quoted. Yeah.
Right, I'm still like lost on that.
I know. Yeah. Right. So those are all the pieces. Okay. One more thing, just which I thought was really nice. The Yad Pshuta. And this might actually be an opening to an answer. We're not going to read the whole Yad Pshuta, but he gives a nice little explanation for why the Rambam has to say this. He says, tachlis shloshes mitzvos elu hi hasimcha. So the purpose of these three mitzvos of seuda, mishloach, manos, and matanos levyonim is simcha. Okay. Sorry. Good question. Okay. Yeah. Ella shezon niskana lehiskayim b'derech misuyemes aydem mitzvos mugdaros. But this was decreed to be carried out through specific mitzvos. Okay. L'chol achas me mitzvos shir lamata she'osu chayav kol echad l'kayim. So each one has a bottom level share that each one, a minimal share that each one's person is obligated to fulfill. Omnam l'shem hasagas hamatara haklalis. For the sake of the objective, you would need to increase in all of the mitzvahs, meaning this is just a minimal share, right? And note that the Rambam has riboy in all of them, right? Which I don't think we explicitly noted. That he mentions and then he also talks about riboy in Mutav la'adam laharbos b'matanos avyonim milaharbos b'sudaso, right? So there is an idea of riboy in the Suda, okay? Lefika hidgish, me'ata haya ola al datenu sheyesh laharbos b'shloshim b'shabbat. So you would have a havamina that you should increase in all of them equally. Okay, Lefikach, therefore, hidgish rabbeinu she'ein hadavar kain. The Rambam emphasizes that this is not the case. Ki l'shem hasagas hatachlis haritzuya hari davka hariboy b'matnos aniyim hu shemovil latachlis. Davka increasing in matanos lavyonim, that will bring you to the tachlis of this mitzvah. How so? Hosif rabbeinu uber. The Rambam adds and explains she'ein tachlis simchas kreso, that the purpose of the simcha is not physical simcha. Havi omer l'tzorach atzmo, meaning for yourself. Shezo ina simcha rutzuya k'mavor b'hilchos shvisas yom tov, right? That we've read before. That if you close your door and block out the Aniyim, that's not simchas mitzvah. That's simchas kreso. So it does seem like he is talking about simcha per se. Ella hanirtas hi simcha shel mitzvah. The ideal is simcha shel mitzvah. Begeder ha-mitzvah hi b'derech shel b'halachta b'drachav. And the definition of simcha is walking in his ways. Shezoa tachlita nidreshes meha adam k'mavur b'mor nevuchim. In one of the final sentences of the Mor Nevuchim, quote from my favorite psukim in Yirmiyahu, ki shleimus adam hu asher ba yispar be'emes hi mi shehigia lahasagasu yisar l'kvi yichalto. So the perfection of man in which he can glorify in truth is reaching knowledge of God according to his capacity. V'hayu halichos oso ha'adam achar osa hahasaga mischavin behem tamid chesed tzedakah umishpat l'hidamus b'mas avisala. And that seeking of knowledge of God should lead you to emulate God's ways in tzedakah, chesed, mishpat, and tzedakah. Chesed, he changes the order. Chesed, he says chesed, tzedakah, mishpat, whatever. Yeah, that's the order that he presents it in. Yeah. So that is, first of all, just independently, I think that's a great פירוש on the Rambam, that spells out why he's doing this, but it doesn't help us. But the question is, does it help us with the pasuk?
I'm trying to think of it in halachah terms.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of it in the terms of that Mor Nevuchim. Yeah. See, I think we have a hold on. I think we have a clue in the Mor Nevuchim if we look over the thing that the Yad Pshuta glossed over. Bing, 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 bing. There we go. Yeah. Now you know why Google always says when you do a search, like in 1 second, because other search engines take more than a second. Let's see if I have a good translation of this at the very end. Did that take me to the end? Yeah, he says like this.
Translated the Mora?
What?
You translated the Mora?
So what I do, see, again, it's all about the little habits, which is whenever I write down a translation of the Mora, I put it into one document. So I have this constantly growing document. It's actually it's supposed to be more than 19 pages. I wonder if this is the wrong version. And then the same thing with the Mishnah Torah. Having stated that the sublime ideas contained in that scriptural, 96 pages. Yeah. Yeah. Having stated that the sublime ideas contained in that scriptural passage and quoted the explanation of our sages, we will now complete what the remainder of that passage teaches us. The prophet does not content himself with explaining that the knowledge of God is the highest kind of perfection, right? In other words, it's not just, I just got the pasuk, even though I know it by heart. If tattooing were allowed, I would get a tattoo of these two psukim, but that would create problems because it's usher, and you would also have to walk into the bathroom with with tattoos. Yeah, that question makes people, certain Jews, squeamish because they don't like tattoos. But
like what tattoo would you get?
Yeah, right.
I love that question.
Yeah, but I would definitely, yeah, because I still think these are the two most important psukim in Tanakh, or in Nach. I mean, sorry, not Tanakh. Yeah, that's why I wouldn't get one even if it were mutter. But if they found a way to do it, so these are, in my opinion, the two most important psukim in Nach. Komar Adashem Al Yishala Chacham B'Chachmasav Al Yishala Hagibur B'Gevuraso Al Yishala Ashir B'Ashro Kim Bezos Yishala Hamishalel Haskel V'Yado Osi Ki Ani Hashem Oseh Chesed Mishpat Utzedakah B'Aretz Ki Be'elech Havas B'Im Hashem. Thus says Hashem, let not the Chacham praise himself with his wisdom, let not the mighty man praise himself with his might, let not the rich man praise himself with his riches, but only in this may one who praises himself praise himself. Comprehending and knowing me, because I am Hashem who does kindness, justice, and righteousness on earth, because in these is my desire, saith the Lord. Yeah, so then the Rambam says, the prophet does not content himself with explaining that the knowledge of God is the highest kind of perfection, for if this only had been his intention, he would have said, for only with this may one glorify himself, contemplating and knowing me, and would have stopped there. Or he would have said that he understand and know me, that I am one, or that I may not have any likeness, or that there's none like me, or similar phrase. He says, however, that man can only glory in the knowledge of God and in the knowledge of his ways and attributes, which are his actions, as we've shown in 154 in expounding the passage, show me now that your ways. We are thus told in this passage that the divine acts which ought to be known and ought to serve as a guide for our actions are chesed, mishpat, and tzedakah. Yeah, so I think possibly, I didn't realize we went to overtime, sorry. I just want a possible approach here is the idea of being Ram V'Nisa would just be being involved in Yedias Hashem and separating yourself from the Hanhaga with the Bria. And the emphasis in the Navi is that God, despite his removedness, is mashgiach on the Bria, and is making that very point that the Rambam ends off with, that there is a derech of perfection where you only focus on perfecting your knowledge, and you lose sight of the fact that it has to culminate in this Hanhaga with the Aniyim. I think we need to expand on that a little bit more, but I think that's the approach. All right. Well, we got one more day before the mitzvah is called upon us. So maybe we'll get back to this on Monday. All right. Sorry, I went over time so much. All right.